knowing how to grow from nothing is super important. How to create a culture and a team environment is absolutely critical. And you really have to understand the skills of your team and how those skills all come together. Sometimes it's really hard to understand how to do that, though. So I had Mikaël Wornoo. He's from TechWolf, and TechWolf's doing amazing things in this. And he came on and shared exactly how you can do that to make sure that your company can grow because your team is as strong as it can be. He also talks a lot about culture and the environment within the company that's successful, and shares his story about how they were able to do it as well. If you're growing your team, this is going to be a really important conversation for you to listen to. Enjoy it.
Welcome to SaaS-Story in the Making, the podcast that features the people who made the software world what it is today and the leaders who are shaping the future of technology. Here's your host, Matt Wallach.
Yes, welcome to SaaS-Story in the Making. This is Matt. I am your host. I am really glad to have you here. Thank you for coming. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is where we help you accelerate your growth, get better and better at running your SaaS companies so that you can achieve your wildest dreams. And today's special guest, which I am super excited to talk to, Mikaël Wornoo. Mikaël, welcome to the show.
Hello, Matt. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm really glad to have you here. Thanks for coming on. And I want to make sure everybody knows who you are, Mikaël. So let me share a little bit about who you are and what you're doing. Everybody out there, Mikaël, he's the founder and COO of TechWolf. This is an AI-driven skills intelligence platform, and it's really slick. Really what they do, they help establish enterprises, or they help enterprises establish, rather, an automatic, instant, and always up-to-date skills intelligence. Mikaël has a background in computer science engineering and is super passionate about all things AI within HR. So I'm so glad to have him here because I can't wait to learn about this stuff. Once again, Mikaël, thanks for coming on.
Good to be here, Matt, and thank you for the kind intro.
My pleasure. So tell me, what's going on with you lately and what's coming up for you?
So we've been growing the business a lot. We're looking at our Series A fundraising. So we're about to raise 10 million. That's really, really, really exciting. We'll use that money for international growth, international expansion. We started off locally and signed up some global customers at the same time. We'll probably get to that in a second. But now we're really starting the next phase of our company's growth, and that's really international expansion. Moving to the US, moving to the UK, and then making sure that we can scale the go-to-market organization and bring that skills intelligence, as you said it, to the rest of the market.
Absolutely. And locally, that's Belgium, right?
Yes, Belgium.
And
tiny Belgium with about 11 million employees, 11 million people.
Wow, I'd be amazed if you had 11 million employees this early on. That'd be awesome.
No, I've been talking about employees so often lately that everything is an employee. That's being an HR tech for you.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to talk about this, your thoughts on going international, because you talked about the US, but have you already gone elsewhere in Europe?
Yeah, we have customers in Switzerland, in the UK, in the Netherlands, and then one customer in the US. So we did a lot of experimenting, just seeing what sticks, what doesn't stick. And now it's time to focus our efforts a little bit more. One of the key things in building a software company is just showing that you're not a local or just a local success. So that's something we kept in mind from the beginning. On the other hand, you don't have the resources to completely set up shop in another country. So it was a little bit tricky in trying to make those trade-offs. But we did manage to sign some early enterprise logos outside of Belgium.
Very cool. It's definitely difficult. That's something that a lot of my clients come to me for is, hey, we're doing okay in our home market, but we want to make sure we can expand elsewhere. A lot of times they go to the US. The US is 50% of the world's software buying power. 50% of B2B software buying comes from US. So it's obviously something that if you're not based in the US, you want to get into. And that's why a lot of people come to me. But I want to go even further back. How did you get the idea to start this?
That's a good question. So we're 3 founders. We started from the typical computer science research background. And what we wanted to do was start an AI company, machine learning company. That was one of the first things we really had in common, and we wanted to solve a real problem, because a lot of this AI stuff typically stays very research centric, and it's really hard to find an actual problem to solve with a cool piece of technology. So that was one of the first challenges we set for ourselves. And one of the most interesting applications we found was in matching people to jobs. And that started off as just having the initial idea of linking students to jobs and then automating that process. We found out that was a very tiny market, and then we moved towards just selling that to actual employment and staffing agencies. So we built software that could match people to jobs, and did that quite well. Did that better than the incumbents, especially in the Benelux area. It's a language without that many speakers, so it's really hard to get language models to work properly. Our approach worked really well, so we managed to convince the first customers there. But again, it was a relatively small market. So the idea was, okay, how do we build a global software company? Well, we start by attacking a really large market. And for us, that was enterprise HR. We started talking to enterprise HR leaders, to enterprise HR buyers, and they kept saying the same thing. And they said, guys, look, really cool algorithm you've got here. But the problem is we only have 10 applications, 5 applications on our vacancies. So we don't need an algorithm to rank those. However, that skills piece that you're talking about, that's really interesting. That skills piece, that's really interesting. Tell me more about that. And then as we kept getting that feedback, we just iterated on that, and started moving the pitch, the product, and more in that direction. And then we ended up where we are today. And yeah, the rest is history.
I love it. It's such a fun story. I always love hearing these stories about how things grow and evolve, but it always feels quick from the outside. But I know when you're in it and when you're building it, there's a lot of grind, a lot of effort day to day to make things happen, right?
Yes, the daily grind, that was I think it's part of it, right? Especially in the beginning, those first 2 years, they're typically horrible. A good co-founding team can make them less horrible, but they're horrible nonetheless. But horrible in a satisfying sense as well. It's the grind. You know, you're getting closer every day, and maybe even week over week, it's hard to see progress, but you know you have that bigger goal in mind. So that makes it bearable. And as soon as you start hiring a team, as you get those first customers, you enter the new phase as a company. But it's still hard, but a different kind of hard.
Agreed. And it's so, because of that grind, it's so fun when you actually have some successes, even minor, small successes. It makes it all worthwhile and makes it worth even more than if it wasn't tough, right?
Yeah, 100%. And that's one thing. Even by being in the grind for so long, you even sometimes forget to celebrate the small successes, because you're so focused on that next step. And then even while you're about to sign the next customer, you're already thinking about the one that comes after that. When you're about to raise funding, you're already like thinking 2 years ahead on the next about the next funding round. So that's something we really had to learn, like celebrate small and large wins, because otherwise you'll just look back 3 years or 2 years past, and then you just realize that you didn't even take time to be present or to really celebrate the small wins or the large wins you had.
Yeah, I love the idea of celebrating wins and making sure that the entire team understands, like, this is good. We've accomplished something. Let's celebrate this. You've got to have that little bit. And I look back to my SaaS companies and the growth that we had. Having those little successes and those little celebrations really kind of fueled us to want more and want more of those celebrations. And it really kind of helped us understand, hey, we're doing something right. Let's I know that there's a lot of stuff that went wrong, but we're doing something well. Let's be happy about that. It's so great.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really something we try to be mindful of today, like in the founding team, but just in the general team as well. At the end of the week, we have our all hands meeting. We have this weekly praise moment. We also just celebrate the small wins, because that's really a moment where the entire team can get together and have that joint feeling of, yes, this is what we accomplished this week. We probably had some downs as well, but we also had probably a bunch of small wins. Let's celebrate those, and let's use that as extra fuel to move towards the next milestone.
Oh, it's so cool. Tell me about this weekly praise meeting you just mentioned. What is that all about?
No, it's not a weekly praise meeting. It's a weekly all hands meeting. But at the last 5 minutes, we have a slot allocated for praise. So people can just come up and praise other team members for something they did, something exceptional they did, or just for being a good colleague, being someone they like to work with. And it's nice for people to get that visibility in the organization. But it's also nice as the giver of praise to truly show your appreciation for someone who helped you solve a problem, who helped you tackle something that you probably couldn't do alone. So that's something we started doing. I think it started, maybe even started as a joke, and then it really felt really nice, and we just kept doing it because it really had a big impact on the culture.
Yeah, I bet that creates a ton of bond on the team, and everybody starts to feel kind of like a family, I bet.
Yeah, but I don't really like the word family. It's like we talk about a lot about the company culture we want to build, and I think in a family you tolerate toxic family members, and that's not something we do. We really like to think of ourselves as a high performing team. We have high standards. We celebrate those wins together, but we really try to make sure that toxicity is not allowed, not endorsed, not tolerated as well. So that's an important one for me. Like it's work. You're moving together towards a very specific goal, but it's not a family in the sense that you do hold each other to a really high standard. You hold each other accountable, and it's that accountability that separates family from work in some sense for me personally.
No, I'm glad you said that, because you're right. In family, there is that toxic vibe that can happen with certain family members, and you just kind of have to take it and accept it. But you're right, that doesn't belong within a team and a culture. So I'm glad you just made that distinction. I want to understand. So TechWolf, you guys are doing some great stuff. Can you explain, what does the product do exactly, and who do you help, and what do they gain from it?
Yeah. So the main problem we solve is that most large organizations have absolutely no idea of what skills their employees have, and this leads to, in essence, suboptimal resource allocation, human resource allocation, but also suboptimal talent management and talent development. And those things are really crucial today in the war for talent. So what we do is we use AI to automatically assess the skills an employee has based on the unstructured data an organization has on them. And typically the data is scattered around many systems. And this skills data is used by, for example, professional services firms to allocate people to projects more efficiently, by energy companies to identify transferable skills when transitioning to renewables, and then across all industries to identify and search for talent in a better way. So we're creating more data about employees that can be used in talent management. And you could even look at it from like a more philosophical point of view. One of the crucial data points in talent management is having access, or is skills data. And having access to skills data fuels a lot of these downstream processes, but also more upstream processes when you're thinking about your workforce more strategically, where you need to invest in terms of learning and development, in terms of maybe talent acquisition, hiring new people, and that's what we enable for our customers.
Gotcha. So for the employees, from their perspective, what would be the benefits for them of using a technology like this, an AI-driven technology for skills? How does that benefit the employee?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think there's a few dimensions where this really benefits the employee. One of them is enabling personalization at scale. As an organization gets really, really, really large, it's hard for HR to offer people a tailored or personalized approach simply because they don't have the manpower. And HR is still seen as a cost center. Like the HR efficiency is a number that needs to go up. So that means the number of HR people typically needs to go down in a company. So that's one thing. And also like bringing visibility in the organization on people's individual skills without necessarily having to ask them continuously creates more equity in succession planning and looking at internal moves in the organization. And also from a development point of view, we see that people are, and we see this in the data, but also when talking to people more anecdotally, people are a lot more engaged in giving feedback on their skill profile, on their skill data, when part of the heavy lifting already happened. So development, more equity and succession planning, and just personalization at scale, I'd say.
I think that's amazing. How about for the other side, for the leaders? Why is it important for leaders to understand the skills of their team?
Yeah. Well, for company leadership on the highest level, we typically see that it's really hard to have any sensible or correct data on where they need to invest, let's say, learning and development resources. Okay, we have a 10 million euro, $10 million reskilling plan. We are going through a huge transition as a company. How do we invest those resources? What skill gaps do we have? What critical digital skills are we lacking in the organization? Those are questions that the organization can't really answer, or it takes them a lot of manual time, a lot of Excel sheets, a lot of interviews, a lot of workshops. So
Or
that's
guessing,
something that we.
or they just guess.
Exactly. They
Yeah,
just guess.
not good.
Um, I was at an exco, so presenting some of the results we achieved for a bunch of C levels in a telco company, and it was I think the first time, as the project manager said to me afterwards, the first time that they actually had a debate on skill gaps. And so we present them data on each of their functional departments. Like, look, this is how you're doing. Compared to the strategy you set out for the business on. And there they had goals for cybersecurity, for machine learning, and so on and so forth. And then one executive was like, okay, if this is true, then we have a problem. And the conversation on devoting resources to learning and development, like it came so naturally from that the CTO just told me, like, I don't even believe that just happened. And that's the power of bringing data into the conversation. Whereas otherwise, it's just a gut feel thing where they are trying to get resources, they're trying to explain why they need to invest in certain initiatives, but it's really hard to back it with data. So just as marketing became a more strategic function, a function that found it easier to get larger budgets by using, or by getting larger budget by using more data, we see the same thing happening in HR as they use more and more data. And that's not just TechWolf, right? There's an entire people analytics movement. As they use more data, they can become a more strategic function.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that data is so important. Looking at your company and how you've grown it, for a lot of people getting into SaaS and owning a company, starting a SaaS company, it can be very scary. There's really a lot to it, and I talk with them every day. But from your perspective, based on what you guys did, what were some of the best things, some of the best moves that you made that helped you accelerate the company, helped you get off the ground and get going?
I think we did a bunch of things, right? I think one of the, if I look at the inflection points in our business, or like the moment that in hindsight had an exponential impact, like we got an executive coach and mentors really quickly. But the executive coach, we invested in that. It was a lot of money, but like they see things before you see them. And he was an experienced SaaS leader. We did some management meetings with him. He coached us individually. He just kept leveling us up right away. So that was a crucial, or something that really had an impact, especially looking back. Secondly, I think we're all continuously learning. This is probably something everybody says, but we're continuously learning through mentors, through other startup founders, through reading. I sometimes go on Amazon, buy 15 books, and then like just read the ones that I'm really interested in, and then I just keep ordering books. I binge content or I used to binge content on Y Combinator. So really focusing on learning, and then just really for yourself accepting that you don't know anything. If you start a company, you don't know what works, what doesn't work. So like keeping that curiosity was key for them. We really still try to have that continuous curiosity, because you're continuously, you just have to reinvent yourself all the time. The job you did 3 months ago isn't the same job as you have now, and that needs to be the mindset. So you continuously need to level yourself up. And then I think what also had quite a big impact for us, and that was because we didn't have any prior experience, we didn't have a network in the startup ecosystem, is we partook or we joined an accelerator, and that gave us access to, again, mentors, mentorship, and network, like specific courses designed on starting your startup. So For people in our situation, so starting a startup without any prior experience, I always advise something like that, because it just gives you so much useful information, and especially a network that you can't otherwise get, or that takes quite a long time to build up. So, and then even going on that point, most of the things that had an exponential impact were or are related to people. So continuously networking and seeing how you can leverage that network to get to the next stage. Also, we're an enterprise, so even on a global scale and even locally, continuously building that network is also something that really helped the business.
Oh, so true. Those are such great things. I love that you mentioned coaching, since I'm a coach, and that's exactly what I do. I help I help SaaS founders become successful, and I see it. I see them come in very questioning what to do and not quite sure which path to follow. And once you understand the right methods and the right direction to head, it just gives you so much more confidence knowing that this is what we need to do. And you can see people thrive once they have the right answers, the right techniques. So I'm glad you said that. I'm a big believer in that. I want to understand, Mikael, there's a lot of HR focused solutions out there. And even though a lot of them don't do what you do, from the prospects and the client's perspective, they might see it as all kind of similar things. So how have you guys separated yourselves? How are you differentiating to make sure that your prospects and your customers understand how powerful your system is?
Mm-hmm. I think we're really focused on a niche problem, which we've isolated and which we're uniquely positioned to solve. It's quite a complex problem to go from unstructured data, like project management data, feedback somebody gets, to skills data. So that's I can explain it like it's magic, or that like it's really easy, but it's quite a complex problem. We've had multiple acquisition offers for other from other larger companies that wanted to buy us for just that piece. Because they understand that it's really complex. So that's one thing. And like closely related to that is having an amazing team that can build and execute on that vision. Thirdly, COVID kind of helped in terms of the data that was available to run your algorithms on. Natural language processing, AI, is still making huge strides, so that also helps a lot. And also, I think the combination of a local and a global approach, because like software SaaS is super crowded, HR tech is super crowded. So not only do you need to convince your buyers that you're different, you're unique, and so on and so forth, you also need to convince investors that you're a viable business. So only focusing on the moonshot logos, getting pilots, that doesn't make your ARR go up. So really focusing on the two things, making sure that we had a strong local footprint, but also looking at showing evidence that we could be a global software company was something. And then lastly, I'd say we're a backend solution. So we're not employee facing. We create data. We're solving a data problem, not a tooling problem. And more and more customers are seeing that we're not necessarily yet another tool, but that we're really lifting up the entire HR ecosystem with our data.
That's so great. I love the way you think and just talking about lifting up the entire ecosystem. That's such an awesome intrinsic way to get yourself motivated. I think it's fantastic. And this has been a great discussion, Mikael. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing everything about what you're doing and how you're doing it. And I think it's super incredible. I'm sure that a lot of people are going to want to get in touch with you. So how best shall our audience get in touch with you and learn more about TechWolf?
If you want to learn more about TechWolf, that's just our website or our LinkedIn page. And you can always follow me on LinkedIn, or shoot me an email at mikael@techwolf.ai. So if people can spell my name, they can send me an email. Otherwise, I guess they'll just have to click through.
Absolutely. And we'll put those links into the show notes and on the YouTube description so everybody can see that. But Mikael, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed the conversation, and speak soon.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. And thank you for
Bye-bye.
coming. Make sure if you're here watching on YouTube, you subscribe. Make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast if you're listening. Really important stuff. We've got great leaders and other innovation people coming on like Mikael, so you're not going to want to miss those. So go ahead and hit that button and subscribe. And I hope I see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.